Hello, my name is Kylie. I have the pleasure of interviewing the Honorable Judge Vanessa L. Bryant. Please tell us about what you do.
Oh, well, good morning, Kylie. It's wonderful to be here with you today. I am a United States District Judge, and that means that I preside over cases involving federal law. That includes civil cases, criminal cases, bankruptcy cases, and Social Security cases. Together with my staff, which includes 3 law clerks and a site assistant, I adjudicate all of the cases assigned to me by the random selection of cases.
How did you get started being a judge?
Well, I became a Superior Court Judge in 1998, and in 2007, the President nominated me to become the 38th United States District Judge in the District of Connecticut. I was also the first African American female federal judge in New England.
What education is required to do what you do?
Well, in order to be a judge, either a Superior Court judge or a federal judge, you have to have completed high school, excelled academically through high school. Then you have to go to college and get a bachelor's degree, a Bachelor of Science, a Bachelor of Art, Bachelor of Fine Arts. And then you take the LSAT, which is an entrance exam for law schools. And if you get a high enough score and you have good enough grades, you apply to law schools and you get into a law school that's commensurate with your grades and your score. Then you go to law school for 3 years and you get what's called a Juris Doctorate. And you then have to take a bar examination. If you want more legal education, you can get an LLM. My husband had an LLM in tax, so that's a master's on top of the PhD, on top of the doctorate. But you don't need to do that. Usually only tax lawyers, international lawyers, and environmental lawyers, insurance lawyers that specialize in rare areas, copyright, intellectual property lawyers get those specialized degrees. You can also get a joint degree, JD, which is a Juris Doctorate, your law degree, and say an MBA, a Master's in Business Administration, if you want to be in a business lawyer or some other kind of lawyer. University of Vermont has a specialty of environmental law, so if you wanted to be an environmental lawyer, that would be a place that you would go to. But you have to have passed the bar to become a lawyer and to become an attorney, excuse me. When you graduate from law school, you're a lawyer. When you pass the bar, you're an attorney, and you become an attorney at bar. You join a bar. And you have to go through a moral fitness test and an ethics test at that point. When you become a lawyer, you practice for generally 10 years or more. And then in the state of Connecticut, you're nominated by the governor to the Superior Court or the Appellate Court of the Supreme Court, and you're confirmed by the Joint Judiciary Committee, Joint House and Senate Judiciary Committee of the Connecticut Legislature. On the federal side, you're nominated by the President, confirmed by the Senate to become a United States District Judge. So I've been through both of those processes since I was a Superior Court Judge and then later a federal judge.
Where and how did you get this education?
That's a very good question too. Well, I was a poor kid. I moved here from New York when my father was in Korea. We were living on a serviceman's salary, and so I moved from New York where I was born to Connecticut, and I lived in the projects until I was in the 5th grade. That's the grade you're in, right?
Yeah.
And then my grandmother bought a house, and I moved out of the projects. We had strained financial resources, let me put it that way. I knew what rent week was, and that was the week when you ate Franks and beans out of a can, or hash, or leftovers, what have you. And so when it came time to go to college, I had a guidance counselor that was sending me passes to go to presentations by colleges, and I was all excited about going. And I told my mother, and my mother just gave me this kind of sad look, like, "Oh, that's a lovely pipe dream, dear." I don't know how that's going to happen. But I continued to research, and I found out that you could go to California schools for $800 a year, a little over $800 if you were a resident, meaning you had to live there for a year. So at the age of 16, I went to Los Angeles with a friend. I ended up living with a family there. And at the end of the year, 4 months or so later, I came home for Christmas. I was really homesick. And my mother said, no, you've got to go and finish your year. You can't chop up your education. So I finished high school there. And then I had family members that had gone to Howard University. And I came home. I started working in June. I worked until December. I had applied to Howard to start in January. And I had just enough money saved to get through that first semester. And if I was on the dean's list, I could have my tuition remitted. In other words, I wouldn't have to pay tuition. And then if I got a work-study job, I would have enough money to pay for room and board. So that's what I did. And my first work-study job was with the Vice President for Business and Fiscal Affairs. They invited me to work through the summer. So I never came home except to visit after that. I kept that work-study job for the entire time I was in school. And then when I applied to law school, I got into Georgetown. I would have had $18,000 of debt. I got into Howard, but I'd have to pay for the first year to get that dean's list remission of tuition work-study deal. And I was a little concerned about the amount of time that law school would take as opposed to college. And then I got into the University of Connecticut with a full scholarship and decided that that was the more practical thing to do. So I came here. I worked a little bit part-time, and my career flourished here, so I stayed.
What did you want to be when you were a kid?
That's a good question. Well, when I was a kid, I wanted to be either a fashion designer or a lawyer.
Who did you look up to as a kid?
Well, I was born in 1954, and so I pretty much came of age during the Civil Rights Movement. And the people I looked up to were the people who were in the vanguard of that movement. So Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, my family members, my grandmother, my mother, my grandfather, my uncle who was in the Negro Baseball League, a variety of people, my minister.
That is amazing. What advice do you have for kids today?
Never, ever think that there are any limits to what you can accomplish. I grew up in East Norwalk, Connecticut. And East Norwalk is a town on the Long Island Sound. It's in Fairfield County, the Gold Coast of the state. And as a child, I used to ride my bike around or take a rowboat out on Norwalk Sound, and I would see the most incredible mansions, and at that time, a large percentage of corporate executives were living in Connecticut because we had no income tax. And I would see in the morning as I'm walking to school these limousines driving men into New York. I saw no limits for myself. I saw myself driving in a limousine. I saw myself living in one of those fabulous beachfront houses. And so I just pressed on and committed myself to transcending all challenges.
If you could be any animal, what would you be?
A dog.
Ooh, what kind of dog?
Well, I'd be a standard poodle.
What is your favorite pizza topping?
Pizza. Oh, my favorite pizza, that's really hard. I like a vegetable pizza. I like a white pizza with seafood and garlic and parsley. I like pizza a lot, and I love cheese. So any kind of pizzas, I'm game.
Lastly, should Crocs be allowed in schools?
I have 2 grandchildren, and they wear Crocs all the time. That's a good question. Personally, I think that, when I was a child, you had school clothes, church clothes, and play clothes. And you see how I'm dressed today. I call this business casual. I'm not wearing a formal structured suit, but I believe that when you dress, you come with a certain mindset. And the more casual your dress, the more casual your attitude. So Crocs are great for the beach, they're great for gardening, they're great for hot weather, walking outside. But for school, I think it's not a bad idea to put on something more serious, more formal, and say, I'm going to do a serious thing. I'm going to be serious in my comportment, in my behavior, in my dress, in my attitude.
Thank you so much for sitting and talking with me today.
You're welcome. It was delightful meeting you. Thank you very much.